This video, we're going to go over the exclusive right to sell listing agreement brain dump. And don't be surprised if our friend Joe from Legal pops up a few times because there have been some changes made recently by the MLS to the forms that we use. In fact, a number of forms have been added. So unfortunately, this form got a little bit longer in some ways, but we cleaned out as much as we could and made as much optional as possible. But if Joe from Legal pops up, just a reminder that there have been some changes. As always, the information at the beginning. This form is to be used if your client is either just signing the paperwork or signing the paperwork and ready to do photos. You're going to choose, mark that right at the beginning. If they're just signing the exclusive right to sell and the paperwork that goes with it, affiliated business agreement, wire fraud, if it's before 1978, lead-based paint, that kind of stuff, then we're going to have him let the TC know that. But then you need to keep in contact with the transaction coordinator to let them know when the home is ready for pictures, when the seller is ready for pictures to be done, and when they're ready to go live on the MLS. Now, if this is a situation where they're ready to get things going now, then we need to know that up front so we can get things going now. Okay? That's why you have that choice right here, listing package only, and that's just the exclusive right to sell on the documents that go with it. Your seller's not ready for pictures. Full listing package, seller's ready to sign the listing package and documents and get pictures ordered and get things moving. Co-agent, yes or no? Type of transaction, so we know. If this listing can be based on a prior listing, enter the prior MLS number. Even if it was years ago, if this home has sold on the MLS before, it can save our transaction coordinator and you as an agent a lot of time to use the information that's already available on the MLS. This is where we ask you for your lead source. Again, this is a brokerment requirement. Now we're going to get into, here comes our friend Joe from Legal again. If these sellers are in a trust or an LLC or a business organization, we need to know the full name of the trust or the LLC. And remember that title is going to be asking for that. And you know what? Let's go ahead and change that real quick. Now, seller one, seller full legal name and contact information. If there's another seller, again, this has now been made optional. Are there more than two? If there are more than two, add their contact information. What date do you expect the listing to go live on the MLS? If you've had that conversation, let us know so we know what our transaction coordinators know what to plan for. Is their time schedule realistic? If they want to sign today and be on the MLS in 2 days and they don't have pictures, that might not happen. If they are realistic about it, let us know. We do need to know the expiration date. We need the full property address, tax ID number. You can find that on the MLS on the property tax search. Is lead-based paint required? If the home was built before 1978, we've got to have that. Let us know. If it's required, we'll get it filled out. We'll reach out and make sure it's filled out properly. Do you need a disclosure of an interest addendum to the REPC? We need that. As the listing agent, if we get that disclosure of interest done, we can put that on the MLS so that other agents see it right there. And we'll put in the MLS comments, include the disclosure of interest with the offer so it's there right at the beginning. Okay, compensation. Now, this is pop up Joe from Legal here. This is the form that changed, part of the form that changed the most about a year ago, and there are still questions about how it works. So we're going to go through this. Compensation is now in 3 sections, all in the same section, but there are 3 ways to do it. The first thing that has to be listed is the amount of compensation to the seller's brokerage as a percentage amount and or a dollar amount of, okay? If you are charging a transaction fee, include that. That's the first paragraph. Second paragraph. This is what happens if there is an unrepresented buyer that comes in and chooses to remain unrepresented because the brokerage cannot keep any funds that had been offered as compensation to a buyer's broker compensation. If you choose to negotiate with the seller and explain to them that in this situation, there's oftentimes more work for you to make sure things are going smoothly for your seller, you can take whatever percent, you can negotiate a percentage. Usually it's a part of what would have gone to the buyer's brokerage compensation. It is, again, it is completely up to your seller if they're willing to do that. If they say nope, if they come in unrepresented, you're just getting whatever amount mine, I said I'd pay the seller brokerage, then that's what's negotiated. Finally, if the seller is offering a brokerage compensation, you can put either a percentage of gross acquisition price or dollar amount. What did they negotiated? Now, this is that funny little line underneath of that paragraph that says the seller does not authorize the company to enter into a written compensation agreement with the buyer's brokerage. This was added last October when the UAR created a separate broker-to-broker compensation agreement that could be signed outside of the REPC from brokerage to brokerage. Then the REPC was changed to include the negotiation over buyer brokerage compensation in there, and sellers can now opt to say we can't have that separate one. Most of the time, we just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, that means we could still do that if the other brokerage chooses to do that. Protection period, we need how long of a protection period are you going to include? Mediation. Now, where will the square footage of the property be obtained from? County records, appraisal, building plans, other. If you are using a prior MLS listing, mark other and type prior MLS listing. Does FIRPTA apply? Yes or no? Remember, FIRPTA is if your seller is a foreign person. By foreign person, that is someone who is not a current legal full-time resident of the United States. That does not mean citizen. That means they have legal resident status. If they are a student on a student visa, they are a foreign person. I had a situation with family from outside of country looking to buy a home for family in country. If the owner is outside of the United States, they're a foreign person. In that unique situation, the buyer was not a foreign person because the buyer was a legal resident of the U.S. This has to be marked because there are tax implications for title at the time of closing. Are you going to have any addendum to the agency agreement? If so, which one? Now, we have created for the brokerage an easy exit addendum for a seller and the brokerage to simplify the process of canceling a listing if the seller chooses to cancel the listing, negotiating a payment by the seller to the brokerage to compensate the brokerage for time and resources and money spent on photography, sign installation, all those kind of things that we front loaded. You'll see that addendum coming up at the bottom. If you want that included, mark yes. Okay, listing input data. This is for that LIP form to get it started. List price. If that hasn't been determined yet, please put unknown. Put something there. We can start that listing input form for the MLS. And if we don't know a price, we're going to put 0 in it before, obviously not while I publish, but to save it. Total square footage. If there's a basement, enter the percentage finished. And then if they know, enter the percentage of the square footage by floor. This can sometimes be difficult if you're using county records because multi-level or 2-story above grade may not be broken down. In fact, it usually isn't broken down on the county. How much is on each floor? It's just the total of everything above grade. Is it in an HOA or a PID? HOA information here. This is what you're going to deal with quite a bit. Make sure you know about transfer fees. And is it a percentage or is it a dollar or is it both? Some have a percentage that is a reinvestment fee plus a dollar amount to to do the paperwork for the transfer of ownership in the HOA. Public Improvement District, this is new. This has only been on market, only been available in the state of Utah less than 3 years, but a lot of new construction is now using the PID. Public Improvement District is where the builders formed a public improvement district, which is its own taxing entity, in order to purchase bonds to pay for all the public infrastructure. Then, when the construction is completed, the owners of the people who purchased the home, the new owners of the homes, have to form a board and make sure that that bond gets paid off. It shows up as a separate amount on the property tax statement as public infrastructure district. And that tax is attached to the property for the duration of that bond. This has to be disclosed. To put it in perspective, we had a new construction where an inexperienced agent that represented the builder failed to disclose that the property wasn't a public infrastructure district, that this was how the seller had the builder had gathered the funds to pay for the infrastructure rather than taking a loan and then adding it to the price of the home. Over the course of the ownership of the property, it was going to be about $45,000 in property tax that had not been disclosed, and our buyers backed out. When our research on our end during due diligence indicated it was in a PID and had not been disclosed. So find out. This is mostly going to be involved with new construction 3 years or younger. Okay. Title, seller's title company, if we know it. Well, Stephanie Ferguson is our default choice with Real Advantage. If they're choosing to go with another title company, tell us. If it's not Real Advantage, then we need their title contact information. If it is Real Advantage, we've got their contact information. Okay. Property availability. Is it vacant, owner occupied, or tenant occupied? We need to know that so we can help schedule on a line how they're going to make the property available. How will showings be arranged? Is the TC going to be responsible for setting up a line showings, or is the agent going to do that? If you don't know how to set it up on a line showings, let the TC do it. If you don't know how to set up on a line and want to learn how, contact me. I can show you. We need to know who needs to be notified to approve showing requests. The agents, the sellers, there's a tenant. If it's a seller or a tenant, put their names on the other line here. Unfortunately, this form doesn't let me do more than one spot. So put sellers or tenants' names. If it's vacant, go and show, mark that so we know. I know it's a little quirky that we have to put the names under other, but that's the way that's the way Google makes things happen. Okay. Who should be notified? Now, by putting the seller names up here, who needs to be notified when the showings are confirmed? Obviously, most frequently the seller does, but if they want you to know as well, if there's a tenant, whatever. Has an open house already been arranged? Yes, no, other is, I don't know, working on it, okay? It could happen. If it's an open house is arranged, date and time. Now, if this is just because they're doing the paperwork to get started, the information about photo shoot, you'll notice seller is not ready to schedule photos. That is a choice. Otherwise, mark, are the photos completed? Are they scheduled or not scheduled? And then the photo shoot information. How will the yard sign and lockbox be installed? So we can get these taken care of. If you're installing your own, if you want Prex company signed, we'll install one. If you're going to install one of ours, which we've got a limited inventory of, in the last month, we've purchased 10 new lock boxes. And so we're limited. We've been buying more signs. We've got a limited inventory. If you want to arrange through an installation company, or if you want us to order through Illuma, then let us know. That cost needs to be paid according to your agent compensation plan. Keep that in mind. Depending on that cost can be different based on how far they need to go to install the sign. Actually, I have to talk to the guy the day when he picked up our signs. He does about 100,000 miles a year. So he'll go, but you got to pay for it. Home warranty information. Now, we're going to pop up our friend Joe from Legal. The MLS has added some new forms for us to use. The MLS exclusion form has existed for some time. Once you get a signed ERS, you have 24 hours to put it on the MLS, unless the MLS exclusion form is included. The MLS exclusion form has been filed, then we can delay putting it on the MLS. There are 3 selections that the seller can make. Seller, do not submit until a specific date. And then we have to enter a specific date on the other line. Do not submit until publicly marketed. Now, you need to understand that publicly marketed means any kind of public marketing at all. That includes if you put on Facebook, hey, check out this coming home, and you put pictures of it. That's considered public marketing. If the sign is installed, that's considered public marketing. Occasionally, we'll have somebody that's got like the property is a straight up fixer upper, and we're going to be marketing directly otherwise. The most common, if you do not mark one of these, then the default is going to be number 2. Do not submit the property in the MLS until the listing is publicly marketed, and that way we just know when everything's done and ready, then we're going to mark. Well, then we'll click go. This is what we use in order to keep your client, give your client time to be ready. This has to be submitted within 5 days of the ERS being signed, or it's a $250 fine. Unfortunately, we've had a few agents in the office who have not turned this in on time, and they've got the fine notification. The first time during the year, the MLS will waive the fine. The second time, you're on your own. Photo opt-out. There is a photo opt-out form that allows your seller to opt out of photos being posted. Very rarely used. Typically, again, this is a fixer-upper, or for some reason they don't want pictures of the home. They need to understand that if they use a photo opt-out, it does really kind of restricts the marketing because people can't see the home. Now, new form. Listing internet display or address display opt-out form. Select only those the seller has agreed to. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to word this better, but hopefully this whole thing shows up. There are 2 choices. I've advised my listing brokerage or sales agent that I do not want my listed property publicly displayed. I have advised that a sales agent I do not want the address publicly displayed. These are 2 different options. If you don't want the property publicly displayed, that means it won't go on any other websites besides the MLS. That means no Trulia, no Zillow, no Redfin, no Realtor.com. None of those sites can have it. And if you do that, they won't pick it up in the future. You can choose to have just the listing, but no address, which could potentially limit interest in the property because people don't know where it is. Okay, that's the first one. Third-party comments and estimated values. Your seller, this is a separate form, can opt out of third-party sites like Zillow and Trulia and Redfin and those. Some of those may allow other viewers to write comments about the property that you have no control over. If they want to opt out of that, they can. They can also opt out of Zillow, Truly, any of those displaying their automated value. In other words, they can opt out of Zestimate on a Zillow displayed listing. This may be beneficial to them if what Zestimate says is significantly different from what they're listed at, particularly if Zestimate is significantly lower than where they're listed. Zestimate does not know the property. It just uses the algorithm to come up with an estimated value. So your seller may choose to not have Zestimate showing so that people can't look at it and say, why is it listed here if Zillow says it's here? Or they can allow third-party sites to write comments. Limited marketing. If they choose limited marketing, that means the only place it will be listed is the MLS. No third-party sites, no IDX feeds, no other brokerages' websites. They can't even go on our website and try to search it and find it. It's restricted strictly to display on the MLS only. And if this is selected and they market the list date of listing, limited marketing, MLS only, and then later on decide they want people to be able to see it on MLS or Redfin, the Zillow stated policy is they will not pick up the display later. So your seller needs to think about, do they want these other sites to have it? They can restrict what the other sites do with it, like comments and Zestimates, and if the address is public, but once they make it private marketing only, limited market only, the only place it will ever be is the MLS. Okay, again, if they're looking at doing seller finance, these are the terms they need to understand. Have a conversation with Marty about these, especially on the seller side, because there's a lot of information they need to gather. And they need to understand that seller finance, because the due on sale clause in the ERS reminds them that their mortgage may be called due. If their lender finds out they did a seller finance, the lender could call the whole thing due. If they own the property outright, they are the lender. Final notes and confirmation information, and you're done. Yes, it's the longest one because we have the most information we need. If they're just doing just the paperwork, market the bidding is just the paperwork, and you can skip the photography part, but you still need to make sure you cover those new MLS forms. If you have questions, call me.